Have you been thinking about selling your business and the day you might move on to the next great thing, whether that's a whole nother business or enjoying time with the family or going on some great adventure in life? This is Brian Stevens with the Business Seller Success Tips, and this is how to keep your sale from falling apart. We realize that preparation is key, and we provide a lot of different tips to help the people we work with and the people that watch our series learn how to get the best advantage for themselves. This is Brian Stevens with BuyBizUSA. And I also want to mention that if you'd like, you can get a free 2021 Business Seller Success Guide. Just give you some ideas. You can text BuyBizUSA to the number 22828. And don't worry, I'll show the slide at the very end as well. But I just want to begin to chat with you about ways you can keep businesses from falling apart when you get the deal going. So we're talking now about the situation where you might have already got somebody that's interested in your business. They've looked at the business, they've made an offer, and some of the things you can do in advance to make sure you're in a good position is going to make a major difference for letting it continue through. So let me go through a few different tips out there. I'll try and make this quick but useful. Number one thing that I would do is, besides making sure that you're really ready and you got a good idea and doing a value on your business, is to assemble a team of advisors. You know, we're a business intermediary group that helps people buy and sell businesses. So we always say, hey, it's good to have somebody that's the middle person, somebody that's helping you, guide you through the process, etc. But we also realize that really key to this is going to have somebody like a good accountant that's getting your financials together, helping them to be presented not in the way you want to minimize taxes, like a lot of accountants do for us, so we don't have to pay more taxes than we have to, but to now take your records and make sure that the prospective buyers are saying, wow, this has got a lot of value to it. I clearly see that. Having the right accountant is key. Having the right attorney, somebody that's really experienced in small businesses. You're going to have contracts, agreements, terms. You might have employment contracts. You might have seller notes and a lot of different things where having a good attorney is going to be extremely valuable. You might also need somebody that is going to help you with the money when you sell the business, what you're going to do, how to invest it. It's not what you get for the business, but what you get to keep for your business. That's important. And there might be other people along the way, some advisors, valuations, and other key people in the process. So get your team of advisors together, make sure they have experience in the process. You know, realize that this is a life-changing event. It is for you, and it's going to be for the buyer. You know, it's powerfully challenging, and you might think, oh, I'm ready to sell my business. But I've seen that with many people before where they suddenly think, wow, I'm going to go back and that's been my life for so long, and there's a lot of thinking through the process. It's really key. It can get a little emotional. It might be the point where people are looking at your business going, well, why do you have this as a mess? Or why don't you have this organized? Or why aren't you using the latest version of QuickBooks? Or why don't you have a great website that's up to date? You know, and they aren't trying to be insulting. They're trying to make a judgment for themselves, and it feels like a personal affront. Or I need to see more records. Or why do your tax returns show that you're losing money when you're saying that you made money? Or whatever it is, it's going to be emotional, and sometimes that's another good reason for having an intermediary or somebody in between you. But realize that it's not only going to be sensitive sometimes for yourself, but also for the person buying the business. You know, she or he might be needing to take care of a family and are buying an existing business because they need to have cash flows immediately coming in. They can't afford a lot of crazy unnecessary risk. They're buying a business so they can minimize some of that risk. So just be aware and be sensitive to that whole factor, that it's going to be for you, and it might even take you by surprise, etc. Now, here's an old line that we've heard in the industry, and I've heard this for sales and a lot of different things: time kills deals. So one of the things that I think is really important is that you get yourself highly organized. Put everything in one place and make it so that you don't have to go hunting down for all the different documents. Get organized. By that I mean, go think of everything that you could possibly need. Here's some of the things you're going to need, and I can send you a list if you want to reach out to us and through our contact at buybizusa.com. But you know, the last 5 years, at least the last 3 years, but last 5 years, balance sheets, tax returns, financial statements, profit and loss statements, cash flow statements, copies of documents, a copy of a lease if you release property, any copies of the contracts, any copies of things that you own, copyrights or website information and deals you've got going on. Organize all your information in one place. Now, by the way, I'm saying all this, that doesn't mean that any person that just looks at your business has full access to all of that. But when you get to the point of marketing your business and people are going to take a first look, they sort of need to know how well it's performing and how much money it's making, right? But then they want to get into a level of due diligence. That usually occurs after they've gone under a letter of intent or a letter of contract. But the worst thing you could do is to say, well, let me go find this and that, and then disappear for a week or two or three. It makes people suspicious. It makes people feel uncomfortable. It gives them too much time to worry about, well, what if they don't have this or that? Or what if they're just making it up and having something organized? It leaves a lot of discomfort, and it's extremely nerve-wracking. So get yourself organized. Plus, you don't need to waste time. And I recommend that you do that even if you're not thinking about selling your business today. And here's why. Every once in a while, that right person comes into town saying, we're looking to acquire and expand, and we're going to offer well above market price, a business price to acquire a business like yours. And they can knock on your door and you might say, golly, well, for that, I could get out. And then all of a sudden you're scrambling, finding all this data and information that you think are at your fingertips when it's really not. You can't find your corporate docs, etc. Always have your stuff together and get it organized. And if you don't already, put it in one place, make it accessible. But certainly when you go to sell your business, you need to get yourself organized. The next thing is to think through the specifics. All right, you're going to sell your business, and maybe you've gotten your valuation. You say, well, X amount of dollars. That's what I want for my business. And the market might challenge you on that. They might give you a little less, or they might have some terms, etc. But there are other things besides just the price that's really important, okay? And so some of those things that are important for you to think through are things like, I'm going to sign a non-compete clause. And the buyers are going to want you to say, well, I don't want to compete with you in 6 months when you open up across the street and trying to get all your buyers back. Of course. But I've seen people that suddenly say, well, why do I have to sign for 50 miles when nobody would come to the business if they were 15 miles away? And why should I sign for 5 years? I'm not going to get the business, but maybe I'll change my mind in 2 years. Your job, in part, is to protect yourself and get a good deal, but it's also to make the buyer also feel very, very comfortable. Remember, it's got to be a win-win in all this. Think through your taxes. There's an allocation form that you fill out called the 8594. And you probably don't know what that is offhand, but you can look it up, IRS 8594. That means if you've gotten $1 for your business, which you're going to get a lot more than $1 for your business. But you say, well, out of that, what part of it is for goodwill and what part of it is for the non-compete? 10 cents for the non-compete, 10% for the goodwill, 50% for the physical assets. Your job is to try and minimize your taxes. Remember, it's not what you get, but what you get to keep that's really going to be really interesting to you. And thinking through that well in advance is important. And it's important because you can file that document, but the buyer, you're the seller, the buyer and the seller both have to have those same allocations written out. That's an asset allocation. Understand what the expected terms and the pricing are. As we just mentioned before, pricing is key. How are you going to do transition of training? Do you think somebody is going to be able to understand the business in a week or 2 weeks or 6 months or a year? And at some point, when are you going to start charging for your services? A lot of times I encourage sellers to think through a price where we begin to think, what would the average person need to start to learn the business? And some people will say just a couple of weeks, and some people say 3 or 4 months. I've got one gentleman that says, unless somebody really knows the business ice cold, I figure 4 months. And I'm going to price this so that I'm willing to give my time for 4 months. So if they give me what I want, I'm going to give them 4 months of my life. All right. Now, if you start breaking it down, going, and I also want $10,000 a week or whatever, I encourage you to stop doing the a la carte thing and think through the holistic price. It starts to give less room for negotiation, makes people feel really comfortable. On the other hand, after you get beyond a reasonable training time period, it's fair to say, and by the way, if you need me beyond that, I need to get compensated in a certain way. So you can think through that, but include the general transition time frame as part of the whole price. And then also think through how that training would look. What do you expect? And what are you expecting to give of your time? I've had one gentleman, he says, what I'm going to do is 4 days on, and I'll do 1 day of on-call or doing through the internet. I'm going to show up every single day. And by the way, I'm going to mention that I'm going to come in at 8, and I'm leaving at 5. I'm not going to come in early. I'm not going to stay late. I'm not going to work weekends or holidays. So think through what you're willing to give. Make it again, a win-win, fair for both parties. But think through what you're willing to do, and then think through what you might train the people on during the transition. When will you do, how you hire and fire, and how do you do payroll, and how do you do ordering, and how do you handle customer commitments and challenges and complaints and all the processes. Think through and write it out. It doesn't have to be a long, heavy-duty written document, but it really helps to say, week 1, we're going to cover this, week 2, we're going to cover this, etc. Think through what will happen with the due diligence. And if you haven't been through the process before, this is a good time to actually talk to a business intermediary or a broker, or somebody who sold their business, and say, what did you go through? And there's going to be times where people are going to say, I need this document, I need that document, and they come at you in a whole bunch of ways. Remember, being prepared is such a key thing that it's going to be a lot easier for you. And sometimes people who don't know how to buy a business or going through it the first time type in something on the internet like due diligence list. They come with this gigantic long document that asks for things that don't even make any sense, and you don't want to accept that either. You ought to know what's going to be given and what's not going to be given, etc. If you can set it up, bank financing is really a cool tool. Only a small percentage, less than 20%, maybe less than 10% of the businesses on the marketplace are set up to get pre-qualified. I'll be glad to share with you more details on how to go about doing that and finding the right bank. Don't give up on just one bank if they say, no, we don't do it, etc. Get pre-qualified, not pre-approved. That isn't going to happen. Know who your advisors are. I already mentioned that. And if you have a franchise, go through that process too and find out what the requirements are and what they look for in a franchisee. Be prepared for due diligence. That's a heavy-handed thing, and I already mentioned that. Also, if you have a lease, if you have a landlord, find out. Most people are going to want to have a lengthy window of opportunity. Your lease might go for 3 years, but they're going to want to know if they get another 2 5-year options or something like that. And if you're going to get the SBA to qualify, the typical buyer is going to get an SBA loan for 10 years, and the bank and the SBA are going to want the individual buying the business to have at least the same amount of years, or in this case, 10 years of window of opportunity ahead of them. Okay? That's going to be key, and due diligence is going to be a complicated process. Being organized is key. You got to earn the buyer's trust. They're going to be nervous. They're going to be wondering, what are you hiding? What are you not sharing in the business? And be upfront, be straightforward, protect yourself, but also let them have a win-win on some of it. Also, be everything you say you are and do what you say you're going to do. If you've got finances that aren't on the financial records, you got to figure out a way to get around that, etc. Identify the potential hurdles. What are the things that they're going to like, whoa, I didn't see that coming. I recommend that you share that early on in the process. So here's an example. Maybe you have a key employee in the business who's at the point of retirement, and the key employee's already told you, hey, I'm working till the end of the year and then I'm gone. Well, you don't want the potential buyer to get down to the point of closing and then catch wind that that person's quitting, or buy the business with the expectation that the employees are sticking around, take over the next day, and that key employee saying, well, I told the boss I'm leaving in 3 weeks anyway, and then him or her coming back and wanting to sue or go into some difficult things. Identify the potential hurdles. What are going to be challenges? Is there licensing issues involved? Are you willing to help out with a complicated license for a period of time or not, or financing, or if the banks are going to finance it, are you willing to participate and make it happen or not, etc. Make things happen along those lines too. Again, landlord, know your lease, know what you're getting into, and try to negotiate for yourself that you have different options. Find out what's acceptable or not acceptable to the landlord. You might decide early on that you can talk to the landlord saying, if I ever decide to get out of the business, what are the things you want to find out in advance? Is there going to be a fee for doing the transition, etc.? Go through that process. You want to minimize risk as much as possible, so keep things organized, manage it. Don't leave things to chance. It's far better for you to negotiate, bring up the issues that you think are going to be a concern, talk to the buyer and find out what are the concerns and priorities to them, and then try to hash them out as much as you can before you put your final purchase agreement together. One thing is that you might want to get to the point where you don't want to necessarily have to pay your attorneys more money than you have to if you can work it out yourself. So if you can negotiate or talk through or work through all the details in advance, you're far better off, and it's great always see an accountant, always see an attorney, make sure you're getting the right support. But if you can solve some of the issues well in advance, you save yourself some time and money, and sometimes things get turned over to the attorneys on both sides of the deal, and I've seen them just tear the deal apart and at the same time rack up humongous bills that are not necessary. You need good attorneys, but don't put them on the job that you can already do yourself. Have them do the things you can't do because they're highly valuable, but at the same time, you can probably solve a lot of problems yourselves by thinking through the process and then telling them, hey, I've agreed to these terms. How do I protect myself? Or can you write it up or help me out with that? Another thing that's important for people buying a business is to make sure they've got enough money set aside. So one of the things that sometimes they don't always know is how much working capital do I need? How much extra money do I need to buy this business? And if you can help them out with that, saying, well, I think what you need for this business is X amount of dollars, it's extremely helpful. We always remind people to make sure that they have enough extra money beyond what they're using to buy the business and pay the deposits, et cetera, and get things set up. I encourage you to be empathetic. Again, realize that it's an experience for yourself, maybe for your family, maybe for your partners, and and certainly for the buyer as well. They've got a lot at stake. So realize that emotions run high, pace yourself, and be calm, be cool. Look, this isn't everything. This is just a few things to get yourself thinking about it. One of the key things that I always concern myself with is that a lot of businesses go on the marketplace and they just never sell. And you can look at Forbes magazine, you can look at the Exit Planning Institute, you look at the data, showing anywhere from 70 to 90% of the businesses that go on the marketplace don't sell. It's tragic, but a lot of times it's due to not fully preparing or not being totally realistic, not doing the right research, etc. And I just encourage you to be prepared and make great things happen on there. Anyway, this is Brian Stevens with the Business Seller Tips, and I hope this was useful, how to keep your sale from falling apart. And again, if you'd like to reach out, ask us questions, give us comments, tell us other things you'd like us to share, you can reach out to us. You can find our website at BuyBizUSA, and you're also welcome to reach out to us and get a copy of the 2021 Business Seller Success Guide. And by the way, if you're reading this or on YouTube or seeing this later on, and it's not 2021, we're going to update it in the future too. We always do. And other than that, we hope you're doing great. Reach out to us, make great things happen, sell a business, and share your legacy. Take care. Bye-bye.